Oh, what's shaking, everybody? We're back. It's the Monday Overreaction Show or the Overreaction Monday Show. It really doesn't matter. I'm Geoff. That's Anwar. Do us a solid as you're entering the video or watching it on YouTube or whatever the case may be. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, do all of that stuff that we ask you to on a daily basis. That includes notifications. Tell your friends, tell your family. It's my birthday today. So like the video and subscribe to the channel as a bit of a happy birthday to me. If you're new to the channel, please do all of those things. This show brought to you by rogueshop.com. Probably our favorite sponsor, mainly Anwar, because it does make us feel oh so good on a daily basis.
Yes, it is a fantastic one. It actually stole what my overreaction was going to be because I was going to wish you a happy birthday.
Oh.
I had not anticipated that you would tell everyone. So, yes,
I will beg for some likes to the point that I will throw my birthday out into the street and say,
like out of sympathy, like sympathy likes and sympathy subscribes. Like, hey, you also know, like, you know, I haven't been feeling well.
I'm not above a pity like at all.
So
pity subscribe to the channel. I'm down with that.
All right, so clearly it's a happy birthday for Ketch. You are mid-40s right now. Is that correct?
I mean, what do we call 46, 44, 45, and 46 are mid-40s, right?
Yeah, right. I think 45, right? Yeah, 45 to 46. Yeah, right.
All right. Well, then I'm in my last year of the mid-40s. So and then next year it's late 40s, and I just feeling old, man.
That's what I wonder, because each stage in life, like I remember when I turned 30, the biggest thing for me about 30 was like, with that number, I can no longer do dumb shit. Because it's like, you get away with something like, you know, in your 20s. Like kids in their 20s do this. At 30, like, man, you're too old for that. That's 32, you too old for that. And like 40, you know, I was like, oh, we getting there. And I'm getting closer to the other ones. But I got young kids too who are home, by the way. So be prepared for a naked baby running in the background at some point. What are your thoughts at 46, Ketch?
Not too different than 45, which was I'm now closer to 50 than 40. And it just mentally scrambles my brain a little bit. Like I watched a movie this weekend, Operation Mincemeat on Netflix. It's a World War II movie about the British trying to convince the Germans that they were going to go through Greece instead of Italy. And I'm watching two of the actors in there who were both in the two Pride and Prejudice movies that came out. But now they're old. Like Mr. Darcy looks like a grandfather now. And they tried to have a little love story in the movie. And all I could think to myself is he's too old to hook up with this girl that they have in the movie. And I kind of project like I'm married, but it still doesn't make me, you know, you still do that thing where you think you have capability of having game still, even if you're married. I'm 46. I got no game. I am pathetically middle-aged old now. And it just, you know, it disappoints me a little bit.
Yeah, you know, it's funny you say that. So I was at a Texas X's event last week in San Antonio. And one of these cheerleaders came up and started talking to me, like very attractive, you know, and like 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I would have thought, oh, wow, you know, I got a shot here.
Yes.
And I was like, no, she feels like she's talking to her dad right now. And it was just, thanks, honey. Good luck to you. Enjoy your studies. And it just, you know, it was such a mentally turned it off because I walked away thinking like, man, I'm slipping.
That is so funny. All right. Well,
happy birthday, Ketch.
Thank you. Thank you. I do feel what warms my heart is that there's, you know, I love the 60s and 70-year-old dudes out there who've told me they've watched my career since I was in my 20s. And I'm like, well, here's hoping in 20 years from now, I'm as old as you are. Yeah. And, you know, with modern science today, you're like 90 and still on orange bloods and kicking strong.
Oh, you know what, Robert? I like his. He goes at the age where I don't want to have any more game. Now that's
kind of where I am. Yes.
Yeah.
You know, like it is. It's not that you use the game; it's that you just in the back of your mind think that you have it. And Now I'm just
Could you?
I barely get dressed to like do these shows. So, the idea
if I had to be like, Ketch, I need you to pull out your game for one night, man. One Friday or Saturday night. Would you do, or you'd be like, man, what time does the clubs get hopping? Like 11 o'clock, man. I need to be in bed.
I would make for a charming wingman. Because I'm great at conversation and I have no fear whatsoever. So I could get the door open, but like you said, there's still no getting around the fact that like I'm a 46-year-old dad now. Like I'm just a dad. And so if I had like a younger brother, I think I'd be a great wingman, but
you're still older at the elementary school as far as parents are concerned. You got people in the younger 30s who've got kids your age,
Oh, I see younger moms in that, and that's when you're like, oh, you should have wrapped it up, huh? Like I know you love your kids and all, but that wasn't supposed to happen. All right, you ready for my first overreaction?
Some rogue lungs right there. You can tell
that was some rogue lungs. It was a rogue reaction. That was a rogue hit. I've got a Jordan Addison overreaction for this Monday.
Let's do it.
I think this weekend was really good for Texas. I think that, we're getting a couple of days now removed from him Jordan Addison actually being on the USC campus, taking his visit. I think it was a Saturday visit. And I don't know where this goes, but I think this really might be a USC-Texas battle. And that feels like a battle that Texas can win. I know there's this thought that a lot of this is just for show. I guess this is my overreaction. Anwar?
Yeah.
Sorry. Every once in a while you're in mid-sentence and you look at the chat comments and they just stop you in your tracks.
Yeah, my turn had me laughing.
Speaking of smoker's cough, I think this is closer to a 2-team battle than a 3 or a 4-team battle. As kind of evidenced of coming out of this weekend, as soon as the Texas visit ends, the USC visit kind of popped up on the itinerary as that's next. There's expected to be an Alabama visit, but it isn't set yet. And I think really low key, it speaks to the presence of where USC and Texas currently stand. And because it does matter that those visits were planned, scheduled, and executed in Alabama. And if there's a 4th team out there, it's like, oh, well, that might happen. But what we've learned in a very short amount of time with most guys in the portal, who you visit first and early matters almost more than anything else. And I get a sense that these two schools are the primary factors. And I think Texas has got a chance. I'm probably more optimistic about Jordan Addison ending up at Texas today than I was on Friday. Mm-hmm. And I can't put a percentage on it, and God knows I wouldn't do it if I could. If I said there was a 55% chance that Addison was coming to Texas and then he goes to USC, 55% would replace 85% as the thing for the next 8 years. Someone referenced 85% the other day to me. Didn't even know that it was 8 years old and about Kyler Murray. They just knew that was a zinger that people use. Yeah, so no percentage. I don't know how to handicap it. I think the betting favorite should still be USC. But, man, it's close. It's close. And I think it's closer than people think. And I'm fascinated to see where this entire situation goes over the course of the next week. I think Texas is in this thing. And Anwar, you and I have been doing Jordan Addison videos now for more than a week. Like, play the hits, right? And I don't think in any of the other videos I've been quite as I don't know, positive's not the right word, but like I feel like there's more positivity in what I'm projecting in terms of Texas's chances than I have in any of the other videos. And I would say I think that conveys the growing optimism that exists. It's, you know, whatever anybody wants to say, Texas got the first visit. Texas made its pitch. And I think he's very seriously considering both of these schools. We'll see what happens next.
I mean, you know, at some point, Ketch, I gotta, let's say the quiet thing out loud, okay, and have a conversation. I do hear echo for some odd reason. Let me turn my thing down. Hopefully, maybe it's on my end. You know, it's very interesting that we're you know, as you paint this picture of USC and Texas, and you know, potentially being a two-team race at this point, which would kind of mean that Alabama is on the outside looking in.
If they set up a visit, I think that real quick, I think that changes. But
Sure,
there's no visit set up yet.
Yeah, and you would think, in theory, Catch, that playing with the reigning Heisman Trophy winner would be very appealing to a guy who is looking like a future first round pick. You would assume that's that from a Biletnikoff winner. And so, Catch, it makes me wonder, and hopefully we can have, an adult conversation and not, everyone clutch their pearls as we try to, engage in this. The question really becomes, is it really just NIL that we're talking about at this moment? Because, if it was all things were equal, he could have stayed at Pitt and probably be, his draft future was probably set at Pitt. Probably didn't need to make a move. This is not like a guy like Isaiah Nayor, right, who needs to go from Wyoming to Texas to increase his draft stock. Like, this is a guy who was a made man. And so it really, the question really begs, okay, you're a made man. You're probably a future first round draft pick at Pitt. The only thing that's missing at this moment is an opportunity to earn some cash in 2022 and some nice cash in 2022. And listen, I know in the ideal world, we would like to talk about, hey, Texas, the education, Austin, all the wonderful, great things that, we always talk about, bringing a mama, having mama on the visit and loving the coaches and having them go into the living room and all those cute, Macomb schools, graduation rates, like all that stuff. And now if we just keep it a buck, we say, it's going to be a little bit about the cash. Do you think this is what this is going to boil down to?
I think there are two things. I think NIL is one of them, and I think who his quarterback is the other big one. And I think on paper, Texas can win a Quinn Ewers, Caleb Williams quarterback factor. Because from what I've been able to gather, I think there's some feeling in, I don't know if Jordan Addison feels this way or if his management feels this way, or if this is just a thing that hovers out into the air, but they think Williams is an awesome player, but they think he's an awesome player with his legs and not necessarily with his arm at this point in his development. Now, Quinn Ewers hasn't really played in a game. I mean, really and truly. So the conversation becomes, would you bet on a quarterback if it's a USC Texas discussion? Would you bet on a quarterback who's viewed as a special thrower of the football, but hasn't done it in a game yet? Or are you going to roll with the guy who's more proven, but he's more proven mostly with his legs? Now, I think that's a little bit unfair because if you look at Caleb Williams' passing stats from a year ago, he was like a 160, 170 quarterback efficiency rating. Like, he was really good. But I do think he still battles. I think towards the end of the year, teams got film on him against better teams, Baylor, Oklahoma State. He wasn't quite as good. I think that's the decision he's got to make on the football side of things in a world where it's those two schools. And then I think the NIL thing is a factor. I don't think it's the factor that everybody thought coming in when he first went into the portal, because there were these reports and stories that Addison was set to make $2 million a year from USC. And as the last couple of weeks have kind of gone by, my intel tells me that those numbers are just rubbish. This not true. He doesn't have $2 million on the board. I'm not sure that he has $1 million on the table. It's probably somewhere between $500K and $1 million. And I think both Texas and USC can do that in an NIL world. Now, you mentioned a week ago, like I think 2 Fridays ago, state income tax. And it was like, you know, the fine margins can sometimes, you know, define these things. I think the two things until he makes a decision as it relates to USC and Texas is how does Jordan Addison juggle the better situation from a playing standpoint, and what does he think in terms of NIL, and how serious is one school versus the other? What's real and what's not real, right? What is on paper that exists as a possibility, a proposal that can put, you know, ink on it and make it official? I don't know. Like, I think that these are the things that probably could determine where this thing goes over the course of the next week or so. You know, it's May 16th. I think a decision is coming in the next 7 to 10 days, if it even takes that long. Maybe we hear something by the end of the week. And yeah, and I mean, look, it is the quiet part, saying it out loud, but this guy has an opportunity to make a lot. And we know that other transfers to Texas have done really well with NIL. I think Quinn Ewers is the most obvious one. That move from Ohio State to Texas opened the door for him to make 7 figures plus during his Texas career. You know, we can't be naive and put it in the closet and just pretend like this is only a football thing. But I do think the football stuff matters a lot.
So let's go in the realm of possibilities, right? So because this is Overreaction Monday or Monday Overreaction, but I like Overreaction Monday. I think it has a good, nice ring to it. So let's say, Ketch, it happens, right? Let's just say Jordan Addison sometime this week, he pulls the trigger and goes to Texas. And if I say to you, Texas has Quinn Ewers, Xavier Worthy, Isaiah Nayor, Jordan Addison, Jordan Whittington, Jatavian Sanders, Bijan Robinson, Roshan Johnson, Keelan, as the third option. This is a Big 12 championship team, right? I mean, there could be no doubt in your mind that if Jordan Addison, you remember when I told you, I said if they get O'Shawn Mathis, that to me is a team that's least going to the Big 12 championship game. If he adds in Jordan Addison, do you have to check the automatic box and say this team at least gets to the Big 12 championship game?
I think that will be the expectation within the fan base. I don't know personally whether A, I believe that, and B, I mean, maybe it's just that. I don't know if I believe that. There's still, my issues with Texas, unproven quarterback, and whether you have Jordan Addison or not, that feels like the kind of thing that becomes problematic at some point during the course of the season. I think it did with Oklahoma towards the end of last year with Caleb Williams. That, a Caleb Williams that's a year further in his development, and Oklahoma wins the Big 12 championship. I think down the stretch, fine margins determined who was going to win the Big 12 championship last year. So Texas has a quarterback issue. I don't know about the offensive line. I don't know about the defense at all. I mean, as much you think about them adding Jordan Addison and everything else they've added from the quarterback, tight ends, receivers, even the freshman offensive linemen that are coming in, like they've addressed offense. An offense that was already like a top 15 offense in the country. But defensively, we still don't know where the game changers are. Sark himself is worried about linebacker. You and I harp on the edge rush position a lot. And then the kicking game is a question mark, and these coaches are a question mark. Add all of that up together, and I personally don't know how I feel about going so far as to say this is a Big 12 championship team, or this is a team that should definitely play in the Big 12 championship game. But I think Texas fans will think that. I mean, Texas fans have looked at teams, I think, lesser than this on paper and gone crazy and thought that they should be playing in a Big 12 championship game. There's no way to get around the schools probably never had this much offensive skill talent in place at one time if they get Jordan Addison. They certainly have never had a 1-2 wide receiver punch as good as Addison and Xavier Worthy. And I say that with all due respect to Jordan Shipley and Quan Cosby. I mean, there would be reason for a lot of optimism.
It's interesting. Blake, I sent you a message too, so just can you check that in a second? Catch it. I would have. It's funny because there would be question marks everywhere. And so let me answer this, and let's get to one of these questions here. We'll interrupt what we're talking about for super chat. So $2, and we will interrupt the show and talk about whatever the hell it is that you want to talk about. Ketch talked about being, not being too proud to beg on his birthday for subscribes and likes. Not too proud to beg for $2. So I'll finish up my thought and go into this, because I just feel like with that much talent on there, and I know you guys, you always talk about the rankings and what that means, but the fine lines and the fine margins between the rankings. I think to me, Ketch, if we're saying, this is the point where Sarkisian has got to be able to hide some of the deficiencies. So if you can hide some of those deficiencies with that talent, like that should at that point be, to me, enough to at least get you in that game, even if it's not pretty, even though you may not have every single component necessary. To me, it's just too much talent to fail. Now, that might be setting him up for failure, which is not the goal, but it's just really hard for me, Catch, to wrap my head in this world where you tell me that's what you're rolling out on the offensive side of the ball, which no other team outside of Bama probably has anything that can come close to that. And we're still talking about 8 wins. That in itself is an issue. Okay, Blake, put the super chat question on there. Let's interrupt our show for it. We need a super chat graphic, super sticker. Okay, wait.
I don't even know how that works.
Question. That was a question, Blake. It was about Brenen Thompson. There we go. How many receptions for? By the way, Catch, can I say it's time to put some respect on Brenen Thompson's name? This guy no longer needs to be the afterthought in this receiver conversations, because that Xavier Worthy, Jordan Addison, Isaiah Nayer, this and that. Catch, tell the people what this guy did over the weekend.
Well, this segues, whether or not we want to completely go away from Addison or not, we can always go back to it. One of my overreactions, and it may not be an overreaction today, I think Brenen Thompson should have been a 5-star. In retrospect, what we know about Brenen Thompson is that he's the fastest player in the history of West Texas and the Panhandle, and he wins the 3A state championship in the 100 meters with a 10.24. He wins the 200. We are talking, and there probably aren't 5 kids in the country that were major prospects across the country that have that kind of speed. That is, as soon as he joins the team, he's faster than everybody on the Texas team. One of the questions that Sark was asked last week was who he thought his fastest guys were. And he mentions Worthy, and he mentions, I think, Keelan Robinson and somebody else. This guy shows up, and he's one of the fastest players in the Big 12 the day that he shows up. And if we're talking about how many receptions, I think the Brenen Thompson piece of this offense is one of the great unknown wild cards, because I'm convinced that Sark's going to want to get that kind of speed on the field. I think he's probably a natural slot player. So this question could come down to, they land Jordan Addison. He ain't coming off the field very often. So Brenen Thompson, potentially his volume of snaps in year one could be low. But if they don't get Addison, and it's a Jordan Whittington world that we're living in at the slot position, it's such an impossible question to answer how many games that you're getting out of Jordan Whittington. I think Thompson's role could be surprisingly significant if there's no Jordan Addison, because I think he becomes the backup to Jordan Whittington in the slot. And I think as the season goes along, regardless of what Jordan Whittington is doing from a health standpoint, I think we're going to see them want to get Thompson's speed on the field. If I had to guess, probably like 15 catches. I know that sounds low, but there will be games he doesn't catch any. And I think there will be a game or two where he catches 2 or 3 balls and they're big plays, and maybe that stands out. I think there's a world out there where he can catch 20, 25 passes. Hard for me to go much more beyond that. However, let's say he's a big play threat, Anwar. Yeah. And let's say he averages 20 yards a catch, which is really freaking good, but it's not like disgustingly good, right? There were guys last year that were averaging 30 yards a catch, and that is disgusting. Let's say he averages 20 yards a catch and he catches 20 passes. He could have a stat line that looks like 20 catches, 400 yards, 4 or 5 touchdowns. That's one of the best freshman seasons in the history of the school. I mean, don't let what Xavier Worthy did last year feel mainstream and easy to pull off. A 2,405 year for Brenen Thompson as a true freshman would be one of the best freshman wide receiver seasons in the history of the school. So the numbers sound a little modest, but, I think that it would be an unbelievable trampoline for him going into next year when he, I think Jordan Whittington is going pro after this year. If he can play in 9 games, he's going to be 23 next. If he were to come back next year, I think he'd be 23 or 24 going into another year. Nobody wants to be the 23, 24-year-old dude in the college locker room. You want to be getting paid at 23. So I really believe that a Jordan Whittington in his 4th season in Austin has a big year. And can stay healthy. I think he'll go off to the NFL. And I think that Brenen Thompson then takes a monstrous position in the Texas offense where he'll be an incredibly important piece of the offense with Xavier Worthy and what would be Worthy's last season in Austin, and maybe Quinn Ewers' last season in Austin. So you can see a world where even if he has modest numbers this year, modest numbers could propel him into an incredibly significant role in 2023.
Yeah, because there's a second component to that catch that I was thinking about as in the conversation, which is also the punt return component of that catch. And, it's, that begs the question, and it'll be very interesting come, the fall. We know Deshaun Jamison, takes the punts, and we feel like he's got a future potentially in the NFL. We feel like that's probably his upside as far as NFL is concerned, special teams contributions. We know Xavier Worthy can do it. We know Keelan Robinson can do it. But then, here's the question. Do you put a guy like that with that kind of speed that if he makes 2 moves, it's done. Like, it's done. Catch. He makes 2 moves, it's a wrap. Or if he's got a good seam, it's over. So the question becomes, his speed is so good that you have to find a way to utilize it. I mean, you can't just let it sit on the bench at all, right? And I don't think you can't put 10-2, 10-3 on the bench in favor for some other guys. Like, you've got to find a way to get him involved somehow, whether it's bubble screens, jet screen, whatever it is, even if it's simple little things. He's way too fast, way too fast. He fits the mold perfectly of what Sarkisian and Catch, we've talked about this before. The Tom Herman was, with the exception of Devin Duvernay, Tom Herman liked the bigger bodies. Like that's what he was attracted to. He liked the Colin Johnsons of the world. He liked the little Jordan Humphreys of the world. Like to utilize, those kind of guys. He enjoyed that. I'm not saying he recruited all of them, but that's kind of what he really looked forward to. What we're seeing from Sark is the slender, leaner kind of guys at that 170-ish range that can just flat out fly, all strength. When the question was asked, I put 15 as more than likely. But if you tell me that he had 20 with that speed, Catch, I can see it. I mean, I can absolutely see it. He's just too good to just have on the bench for an extended period of time.
The single fastest player in your program warrants some sort of something.
Yes.
And I don't know that we can articulate exactly what that package looks like. Like you said, is he getting one or two end arounds a game? Is it jet sweeps and screens and you're trying to get him two or three? This is an offense with a lot of mouths to feed. And if Jordan Addison joins the party, there's even more mouths to feed. And one of the things I did over the weekend, I don't mean to sidetrack myself, but, Jordan Addison caught 100 passes last year. Xavier Worthy caught like 60. And I think the feeling is that Xavier would like to take that next step to get to 100. Well, Jordan Addison doesn't want to go anywhere where his numbers decline. He ain't trying to go from 100 to 60 or 100 to 70. He wants to go from 100 to 130. So, that's another piece of the decision that he has to make. But in a world where there are a lot of mouths to feed, it's easier for us to say, oh, you got to get Brenen Thompson the ball 2 or 3 times a game. Because we were saying that about Keelan Robinson last year. Like, can't you just get him the ball 2 or 3 more times per game? And it's like, okay, well, we can do that. But that means Bijan's getting 2 or 3 less rushes per game. Or Roshan's getting 2 or 3 less rushes per game. Or Xavier Worthy's getting 2 targets less per game. You know what I mean? So it's an offense that's potentially has so much skill that, it remains to be seen how it'll all play out. But there's no getting around the fact his speed. Oh, God. I mean, I don't know that Texas has seen anything like it on its offense since Jamal Charles was on campus. You're like legitimately a guy where wherever and however you get him the ball, he just can take it if he, Brenen Thompson and Jamal Charles have speed that eliminate angles. It's like, I'm going to take an angle and I'm not. No. They run through angles. And I think that one way or the other, you really have to figure out a way to get that guy some touches. I think you're 100% right in the return game. I don't think it's punt returns necessarily as a true freshman. That seems to be the one area where sometimes coaches want a little bit more seniority back there. But kickoff returns, absolutely. And just letting him be on the field for a number of reps, even if he's not getting the ball, let him take a jet sweep 70 yards for a touchdown and get that on film. And now every time he's on the field, opposing defensive coordinators, he's a guy you have to account for, right? We've watched Texas offenses in the past where they've had guys out as receivers. We think about Cade Brewer lined up at split end. And it's like you don't really have to account for that. You could almost give him the entire field and let him catch the ball and then go get him, and you're probably not going to be hurt too bad. He's got the type of speed that if you don't account for it, he can just make something a scoring drive in one play, and he's an exciting guy. And I will say it again. I think he should have been a 5-star because 10-4 is, and I know it was wind aided, but this guy's been popping 10-4s. He's been hitting, you knew he was going to peak at state, and he did. And I'm in awe of the level of speed, because one of the other things about him is he comes from an area of the state and a high school that doesn't produce guys. This guy should not be coming from this place. But man, you can't argue with math. And 10-2-4 is the kind of math that we just don't see a lot of. I mean, Xavier Worthy was like a 10-5 guy in high school. And we know he's fast. Like, I don't think people really have like a great grasp for how fast that is. Because really fast dudes are running like 10-7s and 10-8s. They're really fast.
Yes.
10-2-4 is like, that's legitimately like Tyreek Hill level of speed. And most good football players can't come close to running that fast.
Yeah, it's like the old Usain Bolt races where it's like it's close for a little bit, and next thing you know, like when you talk about those tenths of a second, the huge difference that it makes as far as the finish is concerned. When a guy's at like 10-1 or 10-2, and it was at 10-4, it's like one guy finished, went to the concession stand while everyone else is finishing up the race.
Well, and all those guys made the finals, right? Like, he's blowing dudes away, and you want to call these other guys slow. And it's like, well, no, those are like the 8 fastest guys in the world. And he's really fast, but just that the other guy who won the race is nuclear fast. And I think as a football player, Brenen Thompson as an Olympic track athlete is not nuclear fast. As a major college football player, he is nuclear fast. Mm-hmm. And when I talk about a 5-star player, it's someone whose skill set is so special that it almost can't be compared to other guys. That's what Brenen Thompson has. And Jesse Ullman just jumped in and said, that's Marquise Goodwin speed. And it's like, no, this is what I'm trying to tell you. That's faster than like Marquise Goodwin at the same stage of their high school careers. And we know that Marquise Goodwin is like nuclear fast. So, I think that the difference between Marquise Goodwin and Brenen Thompson as high school athletes is that Marquise Goodwin was a long jumper and a triple jumper at a nationally elite level. But from a speed standpoint, Brenen Thompson's pretty unmatched. And there's no one else in Texas that's remotely like him. And, if we go through the 5-stars that Rivals named or any company named from the 2022 class, I don't know that we'll find anybody that is flat out faster than Brenen Thompson. And I think that come on, man, we don't need to do the Malcolm Epps speed. But to Ben's point, the Malcolm Epps recruitments for Texas that was a Tom Herman profile.
Yeah.
Steve Sarkisian likes small guys that you can't see if you don't have good vision. It's like, did you see that Brenen Thompson play? It's like, no, he was moving so fast, I just saw a blur. That's kind of what they're going for. And, there's a world, and look, all these guys think they're faster than everybody else. So there's a world out there where you get Jordan Addison and you put Addison and Whittington and Thompson and Worthy on the field together. I mean, that's a headache for a secondary. Then it really does come down to, can you give your young quarterback time to find the throw that needs to be made? And in addition to the time, can your young quarterback process the speed of the game from Jump Street in a way that allows you to take advantage of your nuclear weapons? And I think that again, it's one of the questions. I feel in my heart of hearts that next year in 2023, all these questions about Quinn Ewers won't exist. Mm-hmm. But in 2022, they still exist until they don't. And as we saw with Hudson Card a year ago, you can have a special arm talent and not be ready to play against half the teams on the schedule. We just don't know that yet about Quinn Ewers. He hasn't played in a game since the state championship game of his junior year when he played against Austin Westlake. Nobody can definitively say they know, because I remember last year thinking that all of us that thought we knew about Hudson in the end, we didn't know. Sark didn't know. If he'd known in advance what was going to happen to Hudson Card against Arkansas, he'd have never made Hudson Card the starter in the first place. You don't know until you know, and that is also a truth with Quinn Ewers that is a bit of an uncomfortable, unfortunate truth, because I feel like if Texas had the 2023 version of Quinn Ewers this year, I think the Brenen Addison, or excuse me, I did it again. The Jordan Addison recruitment.
Do a shot, everybody. Do a shot.
I think if Jordan Addison is a player next year, I think he's already committed to Texas. I think there's a question mark at quarterback that nobody can answer that makes that something that he has to very seriously think about.
You know, it's interesting if someone said something about the Ajay Hall. I was like, damn, always forget to mention him. So he's so good too as well. But I will say this, just on the Quinn Ewers conversation, as a guy who stood on the table for Casey Thompson all last season, and even when that table got pushed down and it had to be put back together again after Arkansas, and so what he was able to do when healthy at that point, I'm going to tell you that same guy is going to tell you I feel good about Quinn, actually, Ketch, and it's going to and everything you say makes logical sense. I'm debating anything that you're saying. But two things can be true. You're right. He hasn't played since high school. There's some unknowns that are associated with it. Sark missed the boat last year. Like all those things, I think are fair and accurate. Quinn just seems different though, Catch. Like it's just a gut. Some of it for me last year was gut with Casey Thompson. And just my gut was like, nah, this is the better option. And my gut just says that I think Quinn, when you factor in he was hurt for, that senior year, and he did play hurt and still got his team to the state championship game. For whatever it's worth, Sark seemingly has all the confidence in the world with this guy. I mean, this guy's on the forefront of recruiting. All the key names that are out there that are coming into here, they have not hidden him at all. That the same way you would hide, guys with redshirt freshmen. Hudson Card wasn't on the forefront of anything, and Hudson Card was supposed to be viewed as a quiet guy. Quinn Ewers is viewed as a quiet guy, but yet Quinn is everywhere. And everywhere he's becoming really the face of the program, if not already the face of the program. All the guys seem to gravitate towards him. He seems to be the one that's become the leader in the locker room. We know what kind of talent he has. And when we look at the talent that's out there on the field, the biggest thing for me, of course, is going to be the offensive line. And how can you protect that guy? Because at the end of the day, I mean, he can't throw from his back. That's what you don't want. But if you tell me Quinn is starts from week 1 and until week 12, I would like Texas chances just because I think he's that good of a quarterback.
I think he's going to be a great quarterback. I really do. The last time I saw him play in a game, and I don't mean to be negative, but I just keeping it a buck. When we saw him play against Austin Westlake in the last game of his junior season, he flinched a little bit, threw some balls up for grabs that he hadn't really thrown up for grabs all season long. Westlake was viewed as a team with a historically good defense. So it wasn't like he's playing against a bunch of chumps. But he kind of blinked, and they kind of got pressure on him. He still put up huge numbers, but in some defining moments of that game, he blinked in ways that Cade Klubnik didn't blink, and we lauded Cade Klubnik for over a year and a half for those very reasons. If you were telling me that Ewers was coming in behind the Texas A&M line from a year ago, which had 2 true freshmen on it, but also had Kenyon Green, also had another guy that, I was from the 2019 class that was a second-team All-SEC player. They had 2 true freshmen on their line, but they also had other NFL players on that line. And, the thing I don't know about Quinn Ewers is what does it look like? Texas, Layden Robinson is the center for Texas A&M. Nobody even talks about that guy, but he was a second team all SEC player as a sophomore. Texas doesn't have anybody remotely close to being that kind of a player. You know, what does Ewers look like against Alabama? My thought right now is there's probably some growing pains. If you ask me today how many sacks I think Will Anderson gets in that game, it's multiple. So it's a question mark for me when the light switch comes on. I feel like it'll be on going into 2023. I don't know if it's on in 2022. And if it comes on, at what point does it flip on? Because that question probably answers whether Texas is playing in the Big 12 championship game or not. I don't care if the light switch isn't on by game 2. It's Alabama in a lot of ways is unimportant. If we get to game 5 and game 6 and the light switch is on, Texas has a chance, I think, to play for the Big 12 championship. If he looks like a young quarterback halfway through the season where there's still ups and downs and he's still a little turnover prone like he was in practice, even in this, in scrimmages. I mean, the one area I think where Hudson Card has an advantage over Quinn Ewers is he turns the ball over less, but it doesn't always have to be that way. It just has to, Ewers just has to get to a point where the game slows down and his talent can take over. The problem is most mortals, it takes a little bit of time. Vince Young's the greatest player I've ever seen. The game didn't slow down for him until his 3rd season. It's hard for me to look at Quinn Ewers and say, the greatest player I ever saw needed 3 seasons, but you're just going to come on in and be ready to go in, less than half a season or better. Like that would be a monumental thing. And I just can't quite give that thing the benefit of the doubt from the beginning, but I feel like at some point during the 2022 season, that thing will happen for Quinn. And when it does, I think the entire program will be talked about in a different vein at that point. Because once you've got a comfortable quarterback in the 2022 era of college football, you can do almost anything. You can beat almost anybody on any given day. The position is that important and that impactful.
Here's why I will give him the benefit of the doubt, and here's why I will say it's different than the Vince Young comparison. Vince Young, it was in a different era, Ketch, where Quinn Ewers plays quarterback and he plays football 24/7 all year round. You're talking about a guy that goes to 7-on-7 competitions all year round, like things that they didn't have back when Vince Young was there. You basically have such a concentration when it comes to preparation to play the sport, where you're literally all the time. You have your quarterback coach. I don't know if Vince Young even had a quarterback coach back then, but you talk about he's got a quarterback coach that is the same guy that works with Patrick Mahomes. That doesn't necessarily instantly equal success. I mean, I'm not saying that, but you're talking about working with a quarterback coach year round. You're talking about 7-on-7s year round. You're talking about competitions year round. Probably potentially longer seasons and, playoffs. I would have to see what the state of Texas looked like back then. But I just think the repetition, because you have more guys who come in ready-made because they have the strength and conditioning, guy that they work with. You have guys who were used to take a few years for their body to develop. But because of all these things that the specializations that occur that maybe you basically saw mostly in baseball back then, but now you see so much more in football and basketball and all these other sports, I think it gives a guy a shot to come in as a freshman. Now look.
He's got a shot.
It's shot. It doesn't clearly. I'm not like, pouring burnt orange Kool-Aid here. You still have to have game speed, right? You still got to get hit by some grown-ass men that are trying to hurt you.
And this line was garbage in the spring at times. I mean, the second team offense couldn't even really run its offense at times because it was a jailbreak. So, it's not even just Quinn. What's that?
All I'm saying is there's a chance.
I agree. And I think there's more than a chance. I think it does happen. I just don't know when it happens. I think anybody would be slightly naive to believe in game number 1, Quinn's got it. mean, he's going to have to take some. Caleb Williams had to take some lumps. Trevor Lawrence took. I think Trevor Lawrence is probably the guy that you would point to that matches up with Quinn the most in terms of profile, recent profile. And even Trevor Lawrence had some growing pains, even if statistically he was great. By the way, Shakur, Vince Young redshirted. So just so that we're all clear about Vince Young, when I say it took Vince Young 3 seasons for the light switch to come on, Vince Young redshirted in 2002 because that was Chris Sims' senior year. In 2003, he split games back and forth with Chance Mock, and that ended with the Washington State Holiday Bowl. And then in 2004, 2.5 seasons into his career, Anwar, and I know it is different, but 2.5 seasons into his career, Texas got shut out 12-0 by Oklahoma, and there were Texas fans who wanted Vince Young to move to wide receiver. And then the light switch came on, and it never turned back off again from that moment on. Everybody's just a little bit different. I'm actually giving Quinn Ewers the benefit of the doubt because I think it happens this year. Just don't know when. And if you could tell me when that happens, I could probably give you a much better and more accurate preseason prediction on what this team's record's going to be. Because if it happens in the first half of the season, I think this team's got a chance to play in the Big 12 championship game. If it happens in the last third of the season, you might be talking about an 8-4, 9-3 team and the fine margins at that point. And late season games against Baylor will probably define just how far this team goes and whether it can get to Dallas a second time this year.
Here's why I think it could happen sooner than later, Ketch. I mean, when you look at Casey Thompson last year, you could say it happened right away. To be fair, I mean, from his first start until he really got hurt, you could say Casey Thompson within this offense hit the ground running. Where I don't know how many straight games that he had that crazy scoring streak. So you're talking about a guy who that was brand new system for the guy. Guy that we feel like probably doesn't have at least the arm strength that Quinn Ewers has. And so, if it could happen for a guy like Casey, that's what I'm saying. It could potentially happen for a guy like Quinn. Again, it's not that.
I don't think it happened for Casey, though.
You said what?
First of all, Casey was a 4th-year player last year. He was in the 2018 recruiting class. So even though he didn't have a lot of in-game experience, he had been preparing in college for that moment for quite a bit. And I think Casey was a little bit of fool's gold because when teams were able to get film on Casey, I think about the TCU game when Casey didn't play especially well, and everybody kind of forgets about it because the OU game happens the next week, and he had the greatest passing performance in the history of, the Texas program. It's hard to know exactly what went down with Casey and the thumb injury, but I know this. His door wasn't getting knocked down by teams in the portal. There weren't people who watched Casey Thompson from a year ago and thought that the light switch truly came on. Otherwise, he'd have gone someplace other than Nebraska, and he would have had legitimate options. And I think if the light switch had ever truly come on, probably Sark gives him a little bit of a vote of confidence. I think there was a little bit of fool's gold. But I can't answer that perfectly because there's so many things that merge together at the same time. The hand injury, teams got film on him. The rest of the team, what the Texas's offense's fault that they lost 6 games in a row. The offense did enough to win a lot of those games. So I don't know. All I know is, look, I'm not down on Quinn at all. I just don't know when his comfort level finds the right space that would allow this team to be a championship type of team.
I would just put this for Casey's slight defense as, the final member. He was throwing with his hand looking like this last year. I get what you're saying as far as it's kind of like, I think it just.
Do you think Casey Thompson is going to be the best quarter or like a top 3 quarterback in the Big Ten?
I gotta look at the guys who are there, but I don't think Casey Thompson is a bum by any stretch of the imagination.
I don't think he's a bum either.
But I'm just saying in the evaluation of Casey Thompson, it's kind of the same way of the evaluation of Quinn Ewers. Like when we talk about the senior season, we have to factor in the injury that he was playing through.
No, there's a lot to it.
To Casey, it had to factor in like the guy did have kind of a screwed up throwing hand. So what I'm saying is a healthy Quinn Ewers in this system for a guy that we think would be theoretically better than what Casey is. That's all I'm saying is I think the light bulb I think it comes on sooner than later. I think it comes on within the first half of the season.
I think we jumped the gun on guys as light switches coming on. I think we did it with Caleb Williams. He's so spectacular for much of that season. But by the end of last season, he kind of came down to earth a little bit. I think about Colt McCoy as a starting quarterback in 2006. And he was, if not for injuries at the end of the season, I think Colt McCoy would have been a Heisman finalist as a redshirt freshman. And the feeling would have been at that point that, well, the light switch is on for him. But the reality was he comes back as a sophomore, slightly different circumstances. The offensive line's not as good, and he turns the ball over 20 times as a sophomore, 18 interceptions, if I'm not mistaken. And suddenly you go to the next year, and Colt McCoy's readiness going into 2008 was like a huge question mark. I think the first time we see these guys have success, we think that means that the light switch comes on. And in reality is it's flickering. But more times than not, it's the adjustment to the adjustment that makes a quarterback ready. So quarterback comes out and other teams haven't seen him yet. And then he has success. And then coaches look at film and they see where his areas of weaknesses are. And they really stress, let's make him work through these areas of weakness. And it's not till that adjustment is made, for me, that the light switch truly comes on. And it's one of the reasons why it's really hard to gauge where Casey Thompson was, because I think right as the hand injury was occurring, teams were probably not off that Oklahoma film, but off of things that from the TCU game and as the season went along, I think teams got a feel for how to game plan against Casey Thompson. And then because of a number of factors, including that ugly hand, he never was quite able to work through the adjustment to their adjustments. I think as long as you
it's hard to adjust if you can't throw the ball or you can't grip the football.
Probably shouldn't have played then.
Hey,
I mean,
that's fair.
At the end of the day, I can't give him a complete pass, but I can't also bury him either. I'm saying I don't know. And as Casey Thompson, so I can't say that the light switch is on for Casey Thompson because I don't know what he is as a quarterback. I even in real time, we warned against making too much out of performances against Texas Tech and Rice.
Dumb. That's his throwing hand. And you know what this was? It was on a game.
Do you think he's going to be a top 3 quarterback in the Big Ten? If not, what are we talking about?
The thing is, Ketch, to answer that question, I have to know more about Nebraska's offensive system. What I am saying as relates to it, but do I think he's a good quarterback? Like 100%, I think he's a good quarterback. Top 3, you have to tell me what category we're talking about. He led the conference in touchdown passes last year. So are we talking touchdown passes? Are you talking completion percentage? Like
the guy that worked with him every day in the building refused to even give him a morsel of benefit of the doubt publicly.
Yeah, but I mean, there's some more to that. I mean, Casey had a different personality. That his bravado wasn't always going to sit well with Sarkisian. His dad was very involved, as we know. His dad was in a podcast, before the season. So there were some other factors that I think just go beyond just the play itself. He didn't stand on the table He didn't stand on the table for Hudson Card either. He didn't stand on the table for any of those guys. At the end of the day, I think he thought they were just okay. But it shows that at the end of the day, Casey Thompson wasn't bad. It wasn't like we look at it. I mean, he's not the reason they lost against Kansas. He's not the reason they lost against Oklahoma. Like, he's not the reason for any of those things.
But I think, it's not a matter of like caveman, bad, good. Like, it's not that, because Casey Thompson's a good player. It's the fine margins. And look, I suppose it's completely subjective when we start talking about the light switch coming on. Like, what does that mean? For me, the light switch goes on, and it's like the glow from The Last Dragon, right? Like, Bruce Leroy knew some karate. He wasn't a terrible karate man. And Bruce Leroy could, like, beat up some dudes, like, all over the city. But it wasn't until he got the glow that he was catching bullets in his teeth and becoming the Shogun of Harlem. And that's kind of where I'm at with Casey Thompson a little bit. Like, he's a good karate man. How good is he? I have no idea. And it's all of these circumstances that, make for an impossible read on the situation. I think.
Can I say something real quick?
Sure.
I need our producers to stop being scared of you. If someone props me up in the comments, you can put that prop up just as easily as you put up a prop for Catch, okay? Like, Michael Rockman has done this before. I'm calling you out, Blake, because Isaac was like, big facts, Anwar. Like, you overlooked that, but you got the Catch props, and you're like, man, I'll put the Catch props. Stop showing stuff for Catch. Put up some Anwar props. That's all I got to say. I'm being scared. It's not going to fire you if someone says something nice about me. Just saying.
I think I mostly run the chat, and I just click on random.
So selective.
Here. I just selected that one.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Some people saying nice
stuff. I feel like we're both talking facts, though. Like, I don't feel like there's
a
right or wrong.
Shown on the screen. Your props are getting shown on the screen. Mine are just over here on the side where no one can see.
I will do nothing on my birthday but put up your props the rest of the show.
I just want it to be fair.
No, I want your self-esteem to be as high as possible.
Not about self-esteem. My self-esteem is great.
I know it is now. I'm putting all these.
It is. But I'm just saying, like, let's just be fair. We're going to have this conversation. I want to.
I put up one comment.
And then nobody wants to talk about my stuff.
I put up one comment that was like, Catch, facts. And you took offense to it. That's what happened. That is literally what happened. At the end of the day, it's the conversation around Ewers is one we'll have the rest of the offseason. How ready is Quinn Ewers to be, and there are levels to it, a good quarterback? I think you and I think he's both. I think we think he's ready to be a good quarterback. Yeah. A very good quarterback? Well, that's subjective. What does very good mean? But I don't know the answer to that yet. And then great, I definitely don't know. So there are levels to the evolution of Quinn Ewers. At the very beginning of his first season, I think it's far-fetched for me in my brain to think that he's close to great yet. But maybe I'm wrong. Like, it's an impossible question to answer at this point.
It is. And I know we're starting to get toward the ends of it. And guys, I'm just having fun here. So don't take it too personal. I give everyone a hard time. It is hard to know, but great would mean he's one of the, top two, top maybe in the Big 12 this season, right? And
by the way, real quick, I've been putting Shakur's comments up on the screen, and Shakur is like writing me in all caps and trying to teach me about Vince Young's career incorrectly. What does it mean that I'm a Hudson Card fanboy? I've admitted to being the president, the former president of the Hudson Card fan club. But like, Anwar, when was the last time I thought anybody other than Quinn Ewers was going to be the starting quarterback for Texas in 2022?
Probably before the day before Quinn Ewers transferred to Texas.
No, it was, if we go back, remember, I told Card and Thompson they both needed to transfer.
Yeah, that was in
November.
That was after Sark kind of made the it was like one of his end of the year things where he basically wasn't rubber stamping anybody.
One of the last couple of press conferences of the year.
Yeah,
I was like, girl, you got to go. Get out of that house. It's danger, girl. I felt like Whoopi Goldberg in Ghost.
Yeah, so, no, it was. Yeah, so it was at that point you were like, yeah, it's probably a bad moon rising for both of y'all.
Yeah. So, yes, Shakur, but just see, Shakur, I'm just glad that you're no longer writing in all caps to make your point. Just don't scream at me in the chats.
Hey, we don't have Marlon screaming at us this week either, so that's maybe he's taking the day off.
Any other parting shots? Any other overreactions from today? Mr. AAU Dad, do you have anything you need to get off your chest?
Oh man. I became that guy officially this weekend, and I've just really got to, I've been fighting against being that guy. I've been fighting against it, Ketch. I've been fighting against it for a few tournaments. This was the first time, I was like,
I love that your struggle is like weeks long. Oh, I've tried. I have tried. I mean,
you know how hard it is for me to keep stuff inside? My goal is to die empty, okay? My goal is to die. I don't want to have anything inside. And so all right, I'm going to tell you real quick, all right? Let me tell you. So AAU, right? So we lost our games this weekend. And I felt like these games could have been lost. Our coach showed up for the first game. He showed up late for our first game. We had a parent who had to, do the coaching for most of the first half and until about the last 2 or 3 minutes, right? So, that's a little bit of a turn off, obviously, when something like that happens. And then what happened in that game, Catch, was we were very close, we became competitive. Then the coach came and then he started making substitutions and we lost. And then I'm like, come on, man. And so, you have that thing that started, that's been building. So lots of things we can question. So any case, so a lot of people are upset over the weekend. We lose all games. The director and program and I are like good friends. And so, I was like, hey, man, I'd like to talk to you, so on and so forth. Dude calls me like Sunday night and like his kid is in the hospital and like in a really like bad situation. I'm like, yo, there's nothing for us to talk about. Like, handle that. And it was just, it's like that whole like, man, I want to talk to him about my 3rd and 4th grade team. And he's like, yeah, so my kid is in this real bad situation. You're like, man, it's time to sit your ass down. Just sit your ass down, Anwar.
You got one more tournament in you. You're going to try at the next tournament to go back to like Woos on it.
Can't.
The next time that coach shows up late, it's over.
Yeah, because it's not about my kid plays a lot, so it's not even a playing time thing. I don't know if you saw the highlights I put on Facebook. If you do have a chance, it's very impressive. Really aggressive kid. He's got DB speed, by the way, very, very good. But it wasn't about us winning or losing. It's just about we practice and it's like half court. We don't ever practice full court. We're running around chairs. And then we play against teams that are pressing us. And our kids are like, oh, what the hell do we do? Because we don't practice it. So that's all it was. It was just more like, I just wish we practiced certain things more as opposed to just running basic drills. Just wanted to do more stuff. But, these guys, what's he getting paid? $200? I mean, what the hell? I'm not going to yell at the guy for that. It is what it is. And Marlon's here, so
can I give Nate's takes
Yeah.
a shout out here because that's legitimately funny. I mean, so sometimes the comments in the comments section hit a little too close for comfort. It's like, ooh, like, damn it,
Yeah.
Nate's takes. Like, I'm sitting here in my glasses and I'm squinting. You know what? Shakur in the future, for my old ass 46-year-old eyes, go ahead and put them in all caps. I will not think you're shouting at me. By the way, this one too, King Mo or King Me 69, which, you know, whatever. Any news about going live after 5 p.m.? Like, I don't mean to. That's a good question. Anwar and I and the entire Orange Bloods team have been talking about doing some live videos exactly after 5 p.m. There is an afternoon, evening crowd out there that we may need to tap into. So stay tuned, because the analytics say it might not be a bad idea for us to do some stuff after 5 o'clock. We do love our Monday morning show, but yeah, maybe in the coming days and weeks, we will find a weekly piece of content that will be after 5 p.m. so that
we can talk about it tomorrow, Ketch.
I'm down.
By the way, real quick, Ketch, I forgot. I'll tell you this live on air. This has been my parting shot. You know, coming to Houston, hanging out with Ketch tomorrow. You remember before Ketch, I was like, I don't like, none of these steakhouses are impressing me, so on and so forth. Ketch, I've got us reservations at Del Frisco's in Houston tomorrow.
Do you?
Yeah, man. GM has got the hookup for us.
Is he buying us a birthday steak?
I will let him know it's your birthday.
I for the first time felt like Alex there for a moment. If anybody out there could just get me a free steak dinner tomorrow when Anwar and I are hooking up in Houston.
Yes. I took care of that over the weekend for us, Ketch.
Well, I love that. My final parting shot, man, I gotta say, the Mavs last night and the Suns. Holy crap! That was historic. That was I mean, there are some Texas football teams from the last decade that are blushing over the severity of that beatdown. That was. And my last parting shot, I discovered last night that someone that we both know who's a really nice person, whose tweets I have never once tried to read in my entire life, a person who I have been friendly with for like 20 years, dude has me blocked on Twitter.
Whoa.
And I have to say, I've come across randos that have me blocked on Twitter, and I'm like, why am I blocked? Like, what, I don't even know you. Like, I feel like you have to really dislike somebody to preemptively strike their ability to read your tweets. It ain't like Billy Lucci's never blocked me from Twitter.
No.
And he and I, we're good for a dust up every couple of years or so. That I found somebody who's a really nice person, at least as far as I know, who went out of their way to block me on Twitter. Kind of had me questioning, like, am I a good person? Like, what does it mean when somebody who's universally loved, like if you went to the Pope's Twitter page and the Pope just randomly had you blocked, and you were like, man, I'm not even out here on these streets messing with you on Twitter. What did I do to cause that? Kind of found myself in that position.
That's it. Because usually what I do, Ketch, I actually hit the ignore button on people, because I like the thought process of someone feeling like they're yelling at me and I have no clue what they're saying. And so, but that let it, and I still keep my followers. It takes. So I use it's called mute, the mute button. I hit mute on most people, and I'm just like, you will just argue with yourself for the rest of eternity, and you'll always think, man, I told Anwar today with you and your like 20 followers, and it just never will reach me. And I just like the idea of someone arguing with themselves. Kind of it's a great thing. block, you must have tweeted. I don't know. Would you tweet out something about Liverpool? Like, what could you have? You've actually, from a political standpoint, haven't tweeted out anything in a while.
It's been years.
Yeah.
I made it through an entire presidential election year. And that was what, 2020? So it's been like 2018, 2019 since I would have posted it. Now, it's possible that this person has just had me blocked for like a decade. I'd never previously tried to get on his Twitter page. The thing is, like, he's always been really nice to me. So now it feels like he faked that. And if he was faking being nice to me, was he really being nice? I don't know. Now I'm questioning how good of a person this is because either I question myself or I question him. And on my 46th birthday, I have elected in the name of not needing a therapy session. I've just decided to blame that person.
Yeah, just say that person has the issues, and I think it's easier to move on. And I can't wait till the show ends so you can tell me who the hell it is, because I want to see if I'm blocked.
Oh, I have a feeling you're not. I have a feeling that guy, for some reasons, just thinks I'm an asshole. So much so that he's like, I don't ever want that asshole to see my tweets. I don't think I've ever done that to anybody. I don't think I've ever selectively chosen somebody and been like, you know what? This person never going to, like, you have to do something to me. If you're rude to me on social media, like, I just don't want that in my life. So, like, I'll block you. Like, I saw someone earlier in the chat was like, you blocked me, Ketch. If you tell me your Twitter handle, I'll do a search live on the air with your handle and my handle. And I have a feeling, see, like, I put up all kinds of comments about me, Anwar. They're not always positive. I promise. They're not always positive. I think that I just was thinking about it. Like, how much do you have to dislike somebody
a lot
to be like, you know what? That person ain't ever going to see anything. It's like punishment. I got punished.
Especially if that person puts out stuff that for a team that they follow, they've also chalked up that if you tweeted out news, they don't even care about it. Like, that's how much they don't want to know.
Thank you.
They'll be around with you.
This person is in the Texas Longhorns universe. Like, I had breaking news on Jordan Addison in the last couple of days. I was the first person to report the USC visit. He dislikes me so much that he was like, fuck that dude. I want to be uninformed. I mean,
he's like, I'll wait for it to be aggregated on Burnt Orange Nation, but the damn if I'm going to sit here and get it from Ketch, I'll wait 4 or 5 hours later.
He can see my tweets and I can't see his tweets. So if I've been blocked from reading his tweets, should I block him from being able to read my tweets so that he one day knows, oh, Ketch saw that I blocked him.
Don't give him the satisfaction.
I kind of want to send him a handwritten note wishing him nothing but blessings for the rest of the year.
Oh, wow.
And being like, I was just thinking about you today, and I hope your life is good, your family is healthy and safe. God bless America. You know, God bless you. Signed, Geoff.
Yeah, God bless you is like totally like the middle finger to any statement.
So I can't say God bless you because he would completely read through that and be like, oh, he just gave me the middle finger at the end of this lovely handwritten note. I think he's jealous of my hair. All right. That's it. For myself and Anwar Richardson, it's high noon. Go get you guys some lunch, and we will do this again tomorrow. Maybe we'll go live tomorrow. Who knows? And thank you to Shakur. He gets the final little chat session comment. Money out the anus actually gets the last one. Send him a great message and then block him. Yes, right as he's about to go unblock me, he's like, wait a minute, I'm blocked too. Ugh. All right. Anyway, for myself and Anwar Richardson, it's my birthday. Like the video, Subscribe to if you're a newbie out there, we go off the rails like this pretty much on a daily basis. We will always entertain you. Subscribe to the channel, get notifications. For Anwar, Richardson, and myself, thank you for watching and being a part of our show. We'll see you tomorrow.